looking at chapter 4 of Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own. It's pretty remarkable. She has begun to look at literature written by women. And the opening question of chapter 3 was, why were there no women writers before the 18th century? Like, for instance, in Elizabethan times, Shakespeare's time. Well, now she's getting up to the end of the 18th century and into the 19th century, so the 1700s and the 1800s, and now there are women writers, and very successful ones. And one of the really interesting writers that she talks about, someone I've never read, um, what is her first name? Behn, Behn. I don't want to get her first name wrong. Mrs. Behn. I think it's Alfra or Alfra Behn. That one of the things that's happening is that women can now make money from writing, and they do, and they are the forerunners. And um, Woolf says that every woman writer afterwards should give thanks to them because they paved the way. That is, they established a role where women, if they needed to make money and they had a literary bent, could make money by writing novels and translating the classics and things like that. But another thing, despite that, I mean, she acknowledges that. But then moving into the 1800s, the 19th century, is the time when we have the first great female novelists in English, and that would be Jane Austen, two of the Bronte sisters, Charlotte and Emily, I guess, and George Eliot, who are classic writers, and they were women. But one of the things I think that Woolf is doing in this chapter is developing her thesis that she's introduced in chapter 3, and that is the difficulties of doing something really good in writing. And I think that needs to be acknowledged. I mean, Woolf is not talking about possibility of writing a popular novel, because frankly, anybody with a little talent, minimum of talent, can do that. She's not talking about the odds against women of writing something that could be on the bestseller list or something that could be widely read. Women have been doing that for a long time. What she's talking about is the difficulties of writing something really good. And that may sound snobbish or um, arbitrary, but that's what she's talking about, writing something great. And I think what she's interested in here in terms of the great 19th century English language novelists, again, the Bronte sisters, Jane Austen, and George Eliot, is the things that they lacked and the obstacles that they faced in doing something really good. And I think that one of the most interesting contrasts here is between an undeniably great novelist. I think that someone of Woolf's time might have said was the greatest novelist of all, and that's Tolstoy, the great Russian novelists, Anna Karenina and War and Peace. And she mentions Tolstoy and she mentions War and Peace a couple of times, and it's an interesting contrast between War and Peace and, let's say, a novel of Jane Austen. And that difference is the difference of experience. But as women in the 1800s and the 19th century were denied the possibility of having the large experience of human beings and society that Tolstoy was able to amass as a man. If you look at Jane Austen's novels, and Woolf thinks that they're great, and she thinks that one of the reasons that they're great is frankly that Austen didn't feel like she had to write like a man. She let herself write like a woman, and because she let herself write like a woman, that she produced the best novel, perhaps, of the 19th century written by a woman. That's Pride and Prejudice. Although that's not my personal favorite. I'm more of a Mansfield Park guy, but in any case, pretty interesting. That is that Jane Austen wrote about what she knew, which was a very small world, the world of the common sitting room, the world that she experienced within her family and friends in the little village or whatever she lived in. Whereas Tolstoy had this, sweeping experience, military, political, cultural, varied peoples, all this travel he did, and all the people that he knew. And on the one hand, I think that Woolf is saying that Austen was a great novelist, insofar as she let herself be limited in what she wrote about. And that made her great because she wasn't trying to write something else. She wasn't trying to write like a man told her that novels should be written. On the other hand, because she lacked the kind of experience that Tolstoy did, her novels would never reach that level. I think that's what she's saying, which is quite interesting. Another thing that she develops is when she compares Jane Eyre, the Bronte novel, with Jane Austen's novels. She said another reason that Jane Austen is really the best female novelist of the 19th century is that she had integrity. Everything that she wrote fit together as a whole, whereas Jane Eyre does not. She talks about how there's a jerk of attention from one thing to another, and that jerk of attention is caused by Bronte's resentment, Bronte's hurt. There's this amazing quote from Jane Eyre where Jane is talking about um, how deeply she wants to travel and have experience and to break out of the bonds that women were held in. And actually, what Woolf is saying is that she's distracted. And she says, there's an amazing, I think, the key to the whole thing uh, is, let's see, I'm afraid I won't be able to find it. Um, but she thinks that if we're concerned with with our own hurt, and that hurt is completely justified. I mean, some of us are victimized, right? We're victimized because we're poor. We're victimized because we're women, or we're gay, or we're transgender, or we're black, or we're Asian, or Hispanic, or other reasons. We are victimized. And the tragedy that Woolf sees is that victimization, if we're trying to do something really great, like write a great novel, it takes such attention to the world, to the thing itself, she says, that if we're distracted by these other things, we're not going to be able to write about that world in the truthful way that she thinks a great novelist can. And this is something that will come up later when we read some of the essays of James Baldwin, um, where he talks about being black in America and trying to be a writer and how that puts up certain obstacles. So it's really a thesis not only about women and fiction; it's a thesis about fiction itself or about the creation of art. And she says it's not easy for anybody, but women, at least of the time, it may be true now. I don't know if it's true now. It was certainly true then. She said that the obstacles are there for everybody, but the obstacles for women in the creation of art that's really worthwhile are even greater.